TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
Jared, hey, we're gonna need you to tone it down with the Summer Friday thing, okay?
What are you talking about?
Well, for one, it's not summer anymore.
Oh, really?
Coconut. Also, who is this?
I'm the caddy.
Oh, he's my intern.
Sorry, intern. I'm his intern.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
No golfing in the office, okay? Summer Fridays are over. You can keep the Hawaiian shirt, but the rest of the stuff, all right? Are you grilling?
Oh, yeah. Did you want a burger or a hot dog?
No, grilling in the office.
It's a good point. We should take this outside.
No, that don't. You put that right back down.
Yo, it's all in the hips.
Oh, dude, come on, we gotta go. Let's go.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for a little tea time wager, a little breakfast bankroll with good friend and colleague, Mr. Brady Kannon. Go follow him on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it today, at Las Vegas Golfer, and of course on the Sports Grid here. Going to talk some Bermuda Triangle. PGA back in Bermuda to as the season is wrapping up, and Brady, great call last week. I like to say, right side, wrong result. I mean, it's hard to pick a golfer pre-flop, okay? And to have a 54-hole lead, to shoot a 65, and to have someone come out of nowhere and shoot a 62, 63 to beat you at the wire. Tough pill to swallow, but we're back. We're back to talk some more golf. We're going to talk a little NFL as well. First and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsor and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play. Download the app. It's free. Viva Tequila Seltzer, as you just saw in that great commercial there. The East Coast is cuckoo for coconut. CT Bets Team Family second to none. Go try one where you indulge in some adult beverages. And of course, Atlanta Steaks and Seafood, Terry Smith. Head on over to Facebook. Introduce yourself to Terry Smith. While you're there, head on over to atlantasteaksandseafood.com. Place an order today. You could be grilling by kickoff on Thursday. So without further ado, let's bring in the one and only Mr. Brady Kannon.
Mr. Dawson, good to be with you again. Yeah, Carson Young almost got there for us, but, it's good to be, in a groove like that where you're coming that close. It's always obviously nice to get one home to the winner's circle, but, it's tough. I knew a couple of guys, one really sharp guy in the space that I respect a ton. He had Eckroat and Carson Young, so a nice week for him. He was certainly on it. It's interesting. We talk about, the motivation for these guys to finish in the top 125 in the FedEx Cup points list for this fall in order to earn their tour card, maintain their status into 2025. And then you've got those guys that are between 51 and 60 on the list. That little 10 place window there that'll also get you into a couple additional signature events. And so these motivational factors, and here's Austin Eckroat, who's inside the top 50. He's already set. He's in the signature events. He's in next season. And he's the guy playing relaxed with no quote-unquote motivational things necessary. He goes and, fires a 60. It was a 62 until he bogeyed the final hole and gave Carson Young a window of opportunity there. But, Sunday 63 is pretty tough to beat. And it was just interesting. A guy that, didn't have all that stuff on the line. Sometimes it works out that way. The guy that, we've talked about that a lot, Jeff. You get into these different tournaments where there's something that these guys have to play for. And oftentimes it's the guy that's there that's just footloose and fancy free and able to kind of swing freely and not worry about this or that. And that's what happened with Austin Eckroat.
And golf is just such a mind game. Whether you're playing basketball with 4 others on the court, baseball with 8 others on the field. I mean, go back to the World Series where Yankees up 5-0 and they're holding hands singing Kumbaya, and it was one drop by Aaron Judge, a Little League popcorn. Can of corn, as we like to say, which started the landslide, or as I like to say, quicksand. In golf, you got nowhere to run and hide. If you 3-putt from 3 feet, you got to still get up onto that tee box. And with me, I'd either slice it into the woods or I'd duck hook it somewhere.
No, you're right. It's an individual sport. And, I think it's very well illustrated by the fact I read about this a long time ago. I think it was Greg Norman that was talking about this. Like, if you take an offensive lineman for Alabama, there's not a lot of difference between him and the next guy at the NFL level, okay? But you take a guy that, is in the top 30 golfers in the world, and the guy that's, at the bottom of the barrel, the Korn Ferry Tour, that's trying to make his way, there is a cavernous difference between those two players. And for that guy that's trying to make his way to the top, and trying to eventually get into the top 30 in the Tour Championship, and that guy that's already there, it's night and day. And I think that speaks to the fact that you've got to do it all on your own. It's not a group effort where you're getting help from that guy that's next to you on the offensive line, and you're getting help from that running back that's making you look good. And so, yeah, you're out there on an island, and it's a solo effort, obviously, and it's got to be all done by your lonesome. And, hats off to Austin Eckroat, who now has 2 PGA Tour wins this season. Of course, won the old Honda Classic, the Cognizant Classic at the Palm Beaches at PGA National back in late February, early March, I believe it was. In fact, I think that was the first show you and I did this year. The Cognizant Classic, Austin Eckroat. So here we go. Bookends to our season with Mr. Eckroat.
Before we dive into Bermuda, I took a couple snapshots of the odds board at the Circa, and you usually don't see this, Brady. Such a, I want to say, tight. I mean, we're talking. There's usually a couple outliers. Obviously when Scotty Scheffler is playing, he's 4 to 5 to 1, and the next star might be 10, 11 to 1. You got a field here. Seamus Power 18 to 1, Mackenzie Hughes 18 to 1, Maverick McNeely 18 to 1, Ben Griffin 17 to 1, Doug the Gim Reaper at 18 to 1. And then, Sam Stevens, Patrick Rogers, Justin Lauer, Lucas Glover, all at 2,000, 2,500, 3,000. I mean, this is like tee up and let's go. I mean, because I don't even think the Circa knows who the hell's going to win this thing.
Yeah, and a tough part for them too, especially a book like Circa, they're relying on sharp action to kind of shape the market for them. And I know that, during this fall swing, they haven't been getting a lot of action. I think the most action they probably took was for the Las Vegas tournament. A lot of the locals getting involved, for the home event here and, wanting to have some action going on in that event. But this fall swing, I just don't think they've been doing a lot of outright business. I know last week they got some business, and a lot of this is illustrated in my article up at PGAtour.com that comes out on Wednesday afternoons, The Prop Farm. And we talked to guys like Nick Bogdanovich and Jeff Sherman and some guys at BetMGM, Thomas Gable back east in Atlantic City. And, most of them are echoing what I'm saying, that the outright business is not too heavy. So, you're not learning a whole lot from your sharp bettors, Jeff, and like you're seeing, some guy pound Ben Griffin or this, it's very light. So it's hard to move the numbers if you don't know, what the market is telling you. And you're right. There's I mean, there's half a dozen guys that are basically all 18-1 this week. I took one of them. We'll get there. But I think, I was looking through the field this week, looking through my handicap, and you look at this fall swing and you look at these same events the last few years and, these kind of watered down fields. And it's really like the same 30 guys or so that seem to be competing in this space. The Austin Eckroats, the Carson Youngs, the Alex Smalley, Justin Lower, Andrew Novak, and I mean, it's all like these, I don't want to call them average players, but I would say they're above average to mid-tier PGA Tour players. And there's probably a solid 40 of them in this field. And I'm sure that's where your winner's going to come from. Hopefully you can make 4 or 5 selections from that pool and one of them gets home.
I'm going to ask you one professional question, and then we're going to dig into the golf here. We're coming up on our 10-year anniversary, January 1st, of public service. We started January 1st, 2015 here at East Coast Sports Investors. I don't know if it's social media. I don't know what it is. There is, to me, seems like an overload now. I know all the sports have come together. Baseball is now left till spring training, but I don't know if it's just like overwhelming at this point. You got the NBA in now their little mini tournament. NHL's through their first month. We're at week 11 in the NFL, which means week 12 of college football. We have the start of college basketball in week number 2. Oh, by the way, UFC 309 this weekend at Madison Square Garden. Is it the social media that has taken the sports world and the sports market to that almost like sensory overload, Brady?
Yeah, I guess it probably is. It certainly has a lot to do with it, I would think. I mean, you and I, before the days of Twitter and what have you, we'd be here in, October and November, just loving life with everything that was going on. But you're right. Now it seems like it's accelerated because it's all right there in front of you. You can't ignore any of it. I certainly don't try to handicap all of it. I've said for many years, I concentrate on NFL football and PGA Tour golf, and for everything else, I listen to smart people. So I've only got time for a few things here. So I'm going to listen to you for college basketball. I'm going to listen to you and a number of other people for college football. Same thing with college hoops. NBA, I don't do a whole lot of betting on the NBA at all. I did make a bet. My beloved Golden State Warriors. I grew up in the Bay Area watching Warrior games since I was, I think I saw the tail end when I was very young. I think I went to my first Warrior game at the tail end of their championship season in like 1976 or 77 was, I think, my first Golden State Warrior game, the days of Rick Barry. And I've finally been rewarded here, 40 some years later with this dynasty type run that they've had. And I didn't have any hopes for them this season, but then they go to this 12-man rotation that I thought was really interesting by Steve Kerr. They're an incredibly deep team. They don't have a lot of stars. Obviously, they've got Draymond and Steph who are getting older. But after that, it's just a bunch of good young kids, and they've got this rotation going. And they got out to a 7-1 start. Now they're 9-2. And a few weeks ago, I bet them to win the Western Conference at 20-1. And now I've seen as low as 10-1. Maybe it's even lower now. But maybe they're going to make one more run with Steph and company before he decides to hang it up. I hope they do. That'd be fantastic.
And how do they do it? They closed 3-point favorites with an under-over of 237 last night against the Mavericks. And it final
Fell
score
right
is
on it, right?
120 to 117. How did they do it?
Amazing. Yeah, totally amazing. That was great to watch. And I tell you what, having been a Warrior fan for that long, Klay Thompson has always been one of my absolute favorites, just a warrior. Obviously Steph Curry is a hero and a star, but I always loved Klay, kind of that second fiddle guy. And that tribute they did for him actually got me choked up for half a second. That was fantastic last night. And he showed up, 22 points, and had more threes than Steph. I think he was 6 for 12 from behind the arc and had himself a nice game. But Steph said, "No, not tonight. It's still my house here in San Francisco," and gave him the night.
I saw that. All right, take us to Bermuda, Brady.
Yeah, the Bermuda Championship, it's really been a globe-trotting type affair for the PGA Tour. We go to Japan, then we go to Cabo San Lucas, now to the other side of the country, out your way a little bit, off the Atlantic coast, about 1,000 miles to Bermuda. And then we'll finally come back home to St. Simon's Island, Georgia for the RSM Classic next week. And then we are done for about a month or so, and we'll turn the calendar to 2025 for Kapalua and the new PGA Tour season. But these guys, like I mentioned earlier, trying to get into that top 125 to keep their job for next year. It's another watered down field, not a ton of star power. You've got Seamus Power, you mentioned, who has won here before. Nick Taylor, Mackenzie Hughes, certainly some very good players who have won on the PGA Tour multiple times, but not all those recognizable star power names here. A very short course, only about 6,800 yards. Robert Trent Jones Jr. design, narrow fairways, Bermuda grass appropriately. Bermuda grass, pretty much wall-to-wall fairways and on the greens. And the big defense, like it was last week in Mexico, the big defense here is wind. And we're going to get some, it looks like, this week. They've got rain in the forecast and wind anywhere from about 15 to possibly up to 40 miles an hour as far as gusts. So if it tells you anything, out of nowhere, 42-year-old Camilo Villegas wins this tournament last year. You've had, it's been a relative no-name event. You've had, like Brian Gay and Seamus Power and Camilo Villegas, not big-name stars winning this event, but all kind of that shorter knocker, good short game, ball striker type mold. And last year, Villegas won it with a score of 24 under par. Okay, so if the wind's not blowing, it's a birdie fest. Well, this year, if it's any indication, our friend Jeff Sherman at the Westgate Superbook, the winning score proposition is 13.5 under par. That's almost half of what Villegas shot last year. So yes, we are expecting some wind. I think it's going to be extremely difficult out there. Even though the course is short, it's probably going to play pretty darn long with that breeze constantly blowing. And I think that is really going to lend itself to ball strikers and scrambling. You have got to be pounding the rock squarely, and you've got to be flushing it out there, because if you're not hitting it square, that wind is going to eat your shot up, and you're going to have a lot of trouble. The other thing is, you're trying to hit the green in regulation, obviously. The wind is going to blow it sideways sometimes, and you're going to miss the green, and you're going to have to scramble and get up and down, without making bogey. So those are my two areas of focus, really, ball striking and scrambling. And if you can hold a few putts, God bless you, you might win the darn thing. So, and then as far as correlated courses, Jeff, I looked at kind of these, coastal tracks where accuracy and ball striking were kind of a thing. Pebble Beach, YLA, the Sony Open, RSM Classic, Sea Island, where they will be next week. I also looked at Colonial Country Club. It's not coastal, but it's kind of that narrow ball striking track. Corrales Punta Cana, in the Dominican Republic. So again, a lot of these kind of off-season event coastal tracks that you'll see where these same guys are playing on rotation. I think those are also, correlated courses this week as well. So that's where we kind of got started. We'll see if we can end up with a guy on top of the leaderboard come Sunday.
Well, the fairway, the number one tee box is yours. Take us away to your outrights.
Okay, so I mentioned I had one of those guys that was at the top of the board, a kind of a collection of favorites this week. I played Mackenzie Hughes. He is absolutely one of the class players in the field this week. He's won on tour before already. He's got more wins and more experience than a lot of guys in this field. really good on the correlated courses. He's got top 20 finishes at the Sony Open. He's got a top 10 at Pebble Beach and Colonial. And oh, by the way, he has won at the RSM Classic, and he also has 2 runner-up finishes at Sea Island. So this guy, seems to do well on exactly this type of golf course. My only cause for concern is he's never played here before, but he seems to do well, very, very well on this type of golf course. He's played twice in this FedEx Cup Fall. He's got a 4th place finish in Napa and an 8th place finish at the Sanderson Farms. He's got a tremendous short game. Over the last 36 rounds, he is 4th in this field for strokes gained putting on Bermuda grass. He is 2nd in scrambling, and then he is 5th on the par 4s between 400 and 450 yards. You've got 11 par 4s, a par 71 golf course. 5 of them are between 400 and 450, and 6 of them are between 350 and 400. And Mackenzie Hughes especially good on those longer par 4s. Got him at 18-1. Andrew Novak at 31-1. Played well over the summer, really had a solid season. 3 top 25 finishes over the summer and a top 10. And then fast forward to this fall, he's got another top 25 finish at the Sanderson Farms, and then 16th a couple of weeks ago in Japan at the Zozo. And I talk about ball striking. That is absolutely the signature of his game. 10th in this field for greens in regulation gained, 17th for strokes gained approach, and he is 9th on good drives gained over the last 36 rounds. So I think this guy is going to be smoking the ball, hitting it flush, and again, if he can make a few putts, he should be there. And then Nick Taylor. This is another Canadian like Mackenzie Hughes, and I think similarly, one of the absolutely better players in this field. Nick Taylor's won a few times on tour already, and this is a little bit of a men amongst boys type of situation here for Taylor. And not only has Mackenzie Hughes been a winner at one of our correlated courses in the past, so has Nick Taylor with a win in 2020 at Pebble Beach. He's also got 2 7th place finishes and an 11th at the Sony Open at Wailea. Over the last 36 rounds, 21st in this field for good drives gained, 26th in scrambling. So ball striking and scrambling. This was interesting. If you remember, it was earlier this year. I bet Scotty Scheffler in game coming down the stretch, and it was one of the times he didn't win. Nick Taylor got him at the Phoenix Open at TPC Scottsdale. Another ball striking based golf course with Bermuda grass greens where Taylor was successful. That week, he was 9th in the field for strokes gained approach, 2nd in greens and regulation, 22nd for driving accuracy, 1st in scrambling, and 1st in strokes gained putting. So you hope that type of situation rolls over for Taylor this week on another ball striking type course with Bermuda grass greens. Maybe there's some connection. We'll see. We hope there is. Grayson Sigg at 50-1. I've seen a couple of guys that I respect in the golf tipster space on Sigg. He makes a ton of sense. He's finished 4th, 11th, and 23rd in 3 out of his last 4 starts. He's been 11th and 22nd here at Bermuda in the past. He's never missed a cut at the Sony Open in 3 tries. He's finished 8th and 15th at Sea Island. As an amateur, this was interesting, I was able to dig up. As an amateur in 2015 and 2016, he was a winner and a runner-up, respectively, at the Carmel Cup at Pebble Beach Golf Links. So some connection there with that golf course as well. Over the last 36 rounds, 4th in this field for good greens and regulation gained, 30th in strokes gained approach, 2nd in good drives gained, and 18th on those par 4s from 400 to 450 yards. So Grayson Sigg at 50-1. And then finally, our 85-1 long shot this week. We hope he's that close once again. Nate Lashley. Lashley has played in every event so far in this FedEx Cup fall swing, and he's made 5 cuts in a row. He's finished 7th at the Sony Open. He's been 5th at Pebble Beach, and he just seems to make a living on these watered down off-season type events at coastal courses. I mean, you always see that name, Nate Lashley, lurking. He has finished 11th at the Mexico Open at Vedanta, 10th at the Worldwide Technology in Los Cabos, 4th and 15th at Corrales Punta Cana, and in Puerto Rico, he's gone 3rd, 7th, and 8th. So this guy's an ATM at these type of events. I hope it translates over to this week in Bermuda. Over the last 36 rounds, 37th in this field for strokes gained approach, 34th for good drives gained, and 10th in scrambling. So a 5-pack for you this week, Jeff.
Is there, you talked prior as we started this, is there a handful of guys playing this week and then obviously next week that are in that sweatshop that need a couple big weeks here to help them obviously for 2025?
Yeah, Nate Lashley was kind of one of those guys, and I think that's why he chose to play every week. And now he's got himself currently to 109th in the FedEx Cup fall standings. So, he's probably good to go. I mean, he probably all he has to do is make the cut this week. I don't know if he was to miss the cut the next 2 weeks in a row, maybe he could slip out from 109, beyond 125, but he's probably looking pretty good. And that's kind of what we talked about earlier. He's probably got a decent amount of comfort level right now, so I think it could free him up a little bit and play a little bit more relaxed rather than on edge when he knows he really is under the gun to perform. But yeah, I don't know the current list of guys on the bubble or whatnot, but obviously there's a lot of guys that are sitting somewhere between 120 and 130 and trying to get on the right side of 125.
Before we let you go, Brady, I'm going to go to one quick commercial. We're going to come back. We want you to get out your 3 plays that you like in the NFL. Ryan. Was funny, Brady, because
that ad always makes me drool. Between the music and the food, there, it's a pretty good vibe. Old Atlanta Steak and Seafood.
I was looking at last week's card, and then there was some okay games at 1:00. First of all, there was paint dry at 9:30 in Germany in that Carolina Giants game, and then the funny was the 1:00 there was a couple good games. At 4:00 you could have been a hero and taken the family out wherever you wanted to go. Wow, Dad, there's football. Don't worry, I want to be a family guy, because it was awful. You look at this week's card.
I am so disgusted with the scheduling, Jeff, and I almost. Not that it's ever going to make a difference if I go on social media and copy the NFL and Roger Goodell and yada, yada. But I know there's an East Coast bias, but, to put 7 or 8 games on at 10 a.m. West Coast, 1 p.m. Eastern, and then have 3 games in the afternoon, it just stinks. And last week was a perfect example. To your point, the afternoon games were atrocious. They should have had the Pittsburgh-Washington game in the afternoon. I mean, you got to have at least 4, and I think ideally 5. That gives you something to look at and have some excitement. And first of all, only 3 games is lousy. And then you have, a snowball effect last week when those 3 games all happen to be awful. I just can't stand it. And again, I understand that you've got to have the bulk of the action in the morning for the East Coast. That's where the population is. Okay, let's have 6, 7 games in the morning on the East Coast. But give me 4 or 5 in the late window. It just I can't stand it.
And we got a great great Thursday night game to start. We have a good 1:00 set. We have a great 4:00 set, and then we got a great Sunday night game. So there's some great action all through starting on Thursday, which leads us to your first selection.
Yeah, but unfortunately, only 3 games in the afternoon on Sunday again. We hope they're good this time around. Thursday, I think, is a great contest, a divisional matchup in Philadelphia. The Washington Commanders visiting the Eagles. Both teams there atop that division, the NFC East. And I've done really well in betting on or against the Commanders this season. And if you look at what they have done historically this year, I think it's only been wrong one time. The week before a division game, they are not good against the spread. That started in week 1 when they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In division, I think they're like 3 or 4-1. So when they play a division game, they are money. The week before that division game, when it's against a non-division opponent, they are a money burner. And I've just been betting that system throughout the season. And again, I think it's 5-1. And it worked again last week. A loser against the spread and straight up against Pittsburgh. Now I will be on them this week in division, taking the 3.5 points. And I would suggest that you do too. It goes back to the coaching staff here. And I believe you and I have talked about this before. Dan Quinn, it goes all the way back to when he was an assistant defensive coach at Seattle. And then he got hired by the Atlanta Falcons. What did he do against his former division that year? He went like 4-1 against the number when he played teams from the NFC West. After Atlanta, he went to the Dallas Cowboys as their defensive coordinator. What did he do against his former division, the NFC South? Like 5-0 against the spread. Well, now he's back in the NFC East again, and he has been perfect against NFC East division opponents this season. I'm betting he's going to cover the number again here on Thursday. Wouldn't be surprised at all if he won this game outright. And by the way, his assistant coach, Cliff Kingsbury, when he was head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, 7-0 against the spread against the NFC East division. These two guys are monsters against the NFC East.
And then on Sunday, Raiders travel. Thoughts on the Raiders this week?
Yeah, I couldn't understand the number there at all, Jeff. I made the Miami Dolphins a 3-point favorite, and we're seeing as high as 8 in the market, pretty much a consensus 7.5 at this point. But it's like Miami won one game on national TV when they were in a great scheduling spot, and all of a sudden they're world beaters again. I mean, they don't deserve to be favored by 8 points over anybody. This team's awful. They've lost 6 out of their last 7 games, and I understand they have been improving since Tua came back into that lineup, but they're still not a very good team. I thought they were a real intriguing side on Monday night against the Rams because that stock had been rising on the Rams. And everybody was cuckoo for coconuts on the Rams. And, oh, my gosh, the Rams. And, Miami snuck in there and the Rams made some mistakes and blah, blah, blah. But no, come on, 8 points. And the Raiders are off of a bye, having lost 5 in a row. It's the perfect time for a bye. When you need a reset, you need to start over and get some things worked out. So I like to bet on teams coming out of the bye that go in struggling. And obviously the Raiders were struggling going into that bye. So 8 points, no, I think at the most this should be about a 4-point spread. I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders won the game straight up, but I'll certainly take 7.5 or 8.
And it sounds like Antonio Pierce is going to go to Desmond Ridder to start this game here. So, again, not a lot of tape for the genius, Mr. Daniels, and the Dolphins there. Again, Monday night game, West now travel back east. So it'll be interesting to see how the Raiders perform there. And your last game, must-watch TV. I was listening to a few of our experts, and they're saying the AFC, which pre-flop we thought was the strength versus the NFC, kind of looks like a team with a 9-8 record, or maybe even an 8-9 record might get in. And I'm obviously talking as the Bengals are one of those teams fighting for that last spot there. They traveled to a red-hot Chargers team, Harbaugh, Herbert. They got the Gus Bus back, and J.K. Dobbins looks like a rookie over there. And, oh, by the way, Quentin Johnson is catching touchdown passes.
Yeah, these are kind of the two teams I think right now that if you wanted to take a flyer on a future bet, it would be the Bengals. And I know a lot of people already have tickets on the Bengals, and I think they're probably a little bit disappointed at this point. But the Chargers certainly are the new darling in the weeds there. They're not the Ravens, they're not the Bills, and they're not the Chiefs, but they're about the next best thing, in my opinion. Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh really connecting, obviously. They're getting it done in a big way. You mentioned Dobbins and these receivers. It seems the relationship with Herbert and his receivers is really starting to blossom. Justin Herbert now into the top 10 in the NFL in yards per pass attempt. And that's not something you necessarily expect out of a Jim Harbaugh offense. I don't think it was like that way early in the season. You know, it was 3 runs in a cloud of dust and play defense. And we know they're playing tremendous defense. Better defense we've seen out of that team in all these years. When Brandon Staley and Anthony Lynn and all these guys, we've never seen the Chargers play defense like this. I think they're holding opponents to like an average of 13 points per game. And now they're starting to click offensively as well. I made this number 2.5 or 3 in favor of the Chargers, and they're only laying 1 or 1.5. So I think take the points out of it, play the Chargers on the money line. I have not been impressed with the Bengals at all. Yeah, their offense is pretty good. T. Higgins banged up. I don't know. He'll probably go this week. It seems like he's been out a couple weeks in a row already. Didn't matter a whole lot against the Ravens, but the Ravens' defense is absolutely awful. It is really the worst defense in the NFL against the pass. And same thing on the other side. The Bengals' defense is awful as well. So, give me a Chargers team that can limit that Bengals offense. I think you have a coaching mismatch with Harbaugh over Taylor, and you have an offense that is starting to click for Los Angeles that can exploit that porous Bengals defense. I think the Chargers win again. And yeah, they might win by margin, but let's keep it simple and play the money line. Should be about minus 125 or so.
I love where your eyes are in the NFL and, of course, on the golf. Everyone knows here where to follow you on Twitter or X at Las Vegas Golfer. But as we always end this segment, Brady, tell them what you got going for the rest of the week on the Sports Grid.
Yeah, golf.com. You can find the article up with this week's selections, a little deeper dive into what we talked about here on the program this morning. I'll have the prop farm up a little later today where I talk with the bookmakers. That will be at pgatour.com under golf bet. And then on Sports Grid later this evening, 7:30 Eastern and also 10 p.m. Eastern with our friends Gabe Morency and Cam Stewart. And then maybe we'll talk to Mr. Dawson, a little college football over the weekend.
I can't wait, Brady. Had you work a little overtime this week. I appreciate it very, very much. Hope to connect with you and Adam on Saturday. Best of luck this week. I'll be watching you on the Sports Grid tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Brian, quick commercial break and we'll wrap it up. Life gets busy and you just don't know what the hell to expect. Woke up this morning, we're having issues in the back end here. Kind of sort of got them rectified, kind of sort of not, but it is what it is. First and foremost, a shout out to Mr. Brady Kannon, good friend and colleague. Great breakdown of the Bermuda Championship in the PGA. 3 great games in the NFL. Go follow him at Las Vegas Golfer. And of course, catch him on the Sports Grid tonight and throughout the weekend. Hopefully I will be on with him and Adam at 7:30 on Saturday. Our other usual guest today, Mr. Tyler Wyatt, I'm jealous as shit, was at the Michigan State-Kansas game in Atlanta, and then followed up by the upset of Kentucky knocking off Duke. And I gave out the under 159 and a hook on the Sports Grid, which came in there. We're going to try to sneak Tyler in tomorrow. He does have a spot right around where we bring him in, so we'll see if we can figure that one out. Of course, a shout out to Mr. Ryan Shanklin. I couldn't have done this without you. Great work as always. Tonight, 5 o'clock, myself and Riley Magnuson will be back for the closing bell. Until then, everyone, enjoy yourselves, and we will see you soon.